Welcome to Whispers at 3 a.m., where buried secrets finally speak. In part 2 of The Well in the White Woods, the search for Larry dives deeper into darkness. A disturbed patient haunted by the room, an abandoned cabin holding Matt's mother's final message, and an ancient force that's been silently manipulating the town for generations. What once was legend is now terrifyingly real. And this time, they're not just kids hiding behind fences. They carry the truth, a weapon, and a desperate will to enter the place no one ever returns from. Are you ready to hear the whispers? From the bottom of the well, put on your headphones. The truth echoes louder at 3 a.m. The following is Missy's recount. The smell hit me first, antiseptic mixed with something else, something older. The linoleum floors squeaked under my feet as I walked to the front desk, trying to channel every ounce of confidence I could muster. The woman behind the desk looked up, her reading glasses perched on the edge of her nose. "Can I help you, dear?" My mouth went dry. "I'm here to see my brother, Jeremy." The name felt foreign on my tongue. I struggled to remember it at first. "I'm Rachel." Her face lit up with recognition. "Rachel! Oh, your voice! It's just like on the phone. I should have known it was you right away." My heart skipped. She'd bought it. Rachel had called before. I filed that away, trying to keep my voice steady. The nurse led me through winding corridors, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. "He's been different lately," she said, her voice dropping. "More agitated. Sometimes he talks about strange things. Just be prepared, okay?" The door to his room looked like all the others. Heavy, institutional, with a small window at eye level. The nurse unlocked it, the sound echoing in the empty hallway. "I'll be right out here. Just call if you need anything." The room was smaller than I expected, maybe 8 by 8 feet. A bed with hospital corners, a window with privacy glass that turned the sunlight gray. The walls were bare, except for a few scratches, marks from God knows what. And there, in the corner, was Jeremy. His eyes found me immediately. They weren't crazy eyes. That's what surprised me most. They were clear, alert, watching. "Who the hell are you?" His voice was soft, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. I swallowed hard. "Mr. Redacted, I'm so sorry to disturb you. I'm actually a student journalist. I'm working on a story and I wanted to ask you about the White Woods." The change was instant. His face darkened, like storm clouds rolling in. "The White Woods?" He let out a laugh that wasn't really a laugh at all. "What makes you think those woods are just some story? The myths, the legends." "Myths." He stood up suddenly, and I fought the urge to bolt. I saw it. With these eyes. He tapped his temple. I saw the room. My skin prickled. "The room? Say it like you mean it." He lunged for a stack of papers by his bed, scattering them across the floor. They were drawings, if you could call them that. Most were just frantic scribbles, but a few made my blood run cold. One showed a boy in a tunnel, a light at the end that wasn't just light. There were eyes above it, watching, waiting. Another showed the same boy kneeling before that light, but something was wrong with his shadow. It stretched the wrong way. A room isn't really a room, Jeremy continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. It's. He grabbed his head, fingers digging into his scalp. It doesn't want just anyone. It's picky, so picky. Jeremy, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, what happened when you disappeared? He went still. When he spoke again, his voice was different, clearer, calmer, which only made his words more terrifying. Dad took me there, to the well. Just like his father took him, said it was time I knew, time I saw what was waiting. But when it came out, he shuddered. I wasn't what it wanted. It chased me away, through the trees, through the dark. When I told them what happened, they locked me up here. I had so many questions, but not enough time. I chose the one that seemed most important. Your grandfather knew about this too? The well, he said, his eyes far away. He only showed me the well, the room. You have to pledge yourself first. You have to be chosen. What do you... If you really want to know more, girl, find the cabin. It's somewhere in the White Woods. I had more questions, but a sharp knock cut through the tension. Rachel, time's up, dear. John and I were waiting outside when we heard the commotion. Through the window, we could see Missy being dragged by 2 security guards, tears streaming down her face. We ducked around the corner, hearts pounding. Try this again, one guard was saying, and we'll call the police. Impersonating family members is a serious offense. The bike ride home was silent. That night, we ended up back at the oak tree, our sanctuary. John had gone down to grab some sodas from his house, leaving me alone with Missy, up in our usual spot, where our initials were still carved from 3 years ago. She hadn't said much since the hospital. The setting sun painted everything in purple and gold, making the White Woods look almost beautiful from up here. We sat in silence, legs dangling from our favorite branch of the old oak tree, the same spot where we'd watched 1,000 sunsets before. But this one felt different, heavier. Remember when we used to pretend these woods were enchanted? I asked, trying to catch her eye. Back in middle school, Missy wrapped her arms around herself, managing a weak smile. Yeah, dragons and wizards and stuff. God, we were such dorks. Were? That got a real laugh out of her. Small, but genuine. Shut up, Matt. The wind rustled through the leaves, carrying the scent of pine and something else. Something older, darker. Missy's laugh faded too quickly. Want to talk about it? I finally asked. About what happened with Jeremy? She pulled her knees to her chest, making herself smaller. The Missy I knew was never small. She was the girl who punched Tommy W. in 8th grade for calling me a loser, who always took up as much space as she wanted. I don't even know where to start, she whispered. Start anywhere. I'm listening. She took a shaky breath. He knew I was lying. Started screaming that I was one of them. That I was... that I was part of the room, trying to trick him. Her voice cracked. The look in his eyes, Matt. He believed it. He really believed it. Jesus, I whispered. You don't understand, she continued, words tumbling out faster now. He was so normal before. Then he mentioned the cabin, and I tried to play it cool, but he saw right through me. She told me everything then, about the well, about what Jeremy had said, about the room. With each word, the woods seemed to grow darker, closer. It's like something out of those horror movies we used to watch, I said, trying to lighten the mood. Remember? When we'd stay up late at your place, and your mom would get mad because we finished all the popcorn? This isn't a movie, Matt. Her voice was sharp. This is real. Jeremy is sick. Hey, I turned to face her fully. None of this is your fault. You know that, right? This guy was sick way before we got involved. The white woods stretched out before us, endless and dark. So we need to find this cabin, I said. Guess so. She stared at the trees, and I could see the fear in her eyes. But something else too. Determination, maybe. We'll figure it out, I said, like we always do. Since when are you the optimistic one? Since you needed me to be. She looked at me then, really looked at me, like she was seeing something new. When did you grow up so much? I didn't say anything. She knew the answer. Missy? My voice was barely a whisper. Yeah, I'm so sorry for everything. Before I could think about it, I pulled her into a hug. Not one of those awkward side hugs we usually did, but a real one. The kind that says things you can't put into words. The kind that promises protection, even when you're not sure you can give it. She melted into it, and I felt her shoulders shake slightly. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. A real smile, soft and genuine. For the first time, I didn't see the annoying kid who used to pull my hair in elementary school. I saw Missy. Brave, terrified, beautiful Missy. You know what's weird? She said, wiping her eyes. Part of me wishes we could go back to when the scariest thing in these woods was our imagination. We can't go back, I said softly, but we can go forward. Together. Thank you, Matt, she whispered. Her voice was so tender. Really. John's voice floated up from below, telling us we needed to head home before dark. Missy turned to climb down, but paused. In one quick motion, she leaned in and kissed my cheek. My face burned, and I watched her descend with the grace of someone who'd climbed this tree 1,000 times. She wasn't shaking anymore. I touched the spot where she'd kissed me, feeling something shift between us. Something that had been shifting for years, maybe, but I'd been too scared to notice. Whatever we were about to face in those woods, at least we'd face it together. And maybe that was enough. The sun sank lower, and the white woods seemed to grow darker, as if they knew we were coming, as if they were waiting. Sign. The door clicked shut behind me. My hands were still shaking from the day's events, a day that should have given me answers, but only left me with more questions. Missy's words kept echoing in my head as I paced the creaking floorboards. There was something there, a thread I could follow. Both my father and Jeremy had mentioned the room. Whatever that meant, it had to be significant. I thought about confronting Dad again, but the memory of our last conversation made my stomach turn. His eyes had gone cold, distant, like he was looking through me rather than at me. No, he wouldn't help. That's when Grandpa Joe's face flickered through my mind. I'd spent years trying to forget him. The bitter old man who treated family like an inconvenience. Most of my memories of him were fragments. The smell of tobacco. The sound of a lock clicking shut. Larry's muffled cries from inside a dark closet. We'd only seen him twice as kids, and those babysitting sessions left scars that time couldn't quite heal. But now, with his heart failing and death circling like a patient vulture, Dad had brought us back here. Missy's words about generational knowledge nagged at me. The way she described Jeremy's hints about something being passed down, father to son, keeper to keeper. My feet carried me up the cabin stairs before my mind could catch up. The hallway stretched before me like a throat. Grandpa Joe's room waiting at the end. Even from here, I could hear the symphony of machines keeping him tethered to life. The steady beep of heart monitors. The wet whisper of oxygen tanks. The closer I got, the more my courage wanted to fail. The door was slightly ajar, and the smell hit me first. That sterile hospital smell, mixed with something else. Something that reminded me of wet earth and decay. Grandpa Joe laid there, more corpse than man. I'd seen pictures of Egyptian mummies in textbooks that had more life in them than he did. His skin was like tissue paper stretched over a wire frame, so thin you could trace every vein beneath. Those sunken eyes were closed, but somehow I knew they could still see. Here was a man straddling two worlds, one foot in ours, the other already testing the waters of whatever comes next. I touched his shoulder, gentle at first, then a bit firmer. On the third try, those hollow eyes cracked open. Gran, a sound like rustling leaves, escaped his lips. Sorry, what? What? Water? You need water? A slight nod, barely there. I helped him sip from a plastic cup. Each swallow looked painful, like he was drinking glass. When he finally spoke again, his voice was sandpaper on stone. Knew you'd come, Matthew. Ice water down my spine. I wanted to dismiss it as the ramblings of a dying man, but something in those sunken eyes told me he was more lucid than he'd been in years. My mouth went dry. How did you... Boy! A coughing fit seized him, violent enough to shake the bed. He grabbed a tissue, and I pretended not to see the red spots blooming on the white. Time's short. Always is. Why waste it chasing shadows? Got a nice life here. Pretty girl. Good land. This isn't about fairy tales. It took Larry. Don't you even care? Something flickered behind those dead eyes. Pity, maybe. Or fear. Not enough. Not enough life left in me to argue. Trust those who know better. Some doors. Another cough. Some doors stay closed for a reason. I pressed him, but he slipped into memories, muttering about how different I was from my father. How Dad never questioned, never pushed, just worked the land like a good son should. I was about to give up when he grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Stop digging," he wheezed, "or you'll end up like that nosy bitch Jolene." My mother's name hit me like a physical blow. Mom was always more ghost than memory to me. Jolene, the journalist. That's all I really knew. It's why we use that cover for Missy. She'd vanished while working on some big story, right after Larry was born. We were all living on the farm then, though I was too young to remember. Now, standing in that room that smelled of death and antiseptic, pieces started shifting in my mind. Sleep didn't come that night. Questions bred like rabbits in my head. By dawn, I was back at Grandpa's door, ready to demand real answers. But the room was empty. The machines stood silent, their tubes lying limp like shed snakeskins. Through the window, movement caught my eye. Dad was coming out of the White Woods, pushing a wheelbarrow covered in blankets. He wheeled it into the barn, then carried the folded blankets inside. When he entered, he paused at the bottom of the stairs, and I knew he knew I was watching. We stood frozen in that moment, neither willing to break the silence that held more truth than words ever could. This was my battle now. I couldn't rely on anyone else. My mother's involvement still loomed over me. I needed to understand it. I spent more grueling hours at the local library, but it felt like I was chasing ghosts. No death certificate, no obituary, not even a mention in the local papers about her disappearance. In a town this small, that kind of silence wasn't just strange. It was terrifying. I was onto something that made my blood run cold. But I couldn't tell Missy or John. This was my family's darkness to unravel. Even if I felt like a kid trying to move a mountain with a plastic shovel. I spent that whole day in the library's basement, breathing in decades of dust, flipping through endless microfiche reels until my eyes burned. Every dead end felt like a punch to the gut. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting sickly shadows across yellowing newspapers, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I eventually admitted defeat. ... Larry would have known what to do. I keep talking about myself, but really, this is his story. My brother was always the clever one. Sure, I could memorize facts and ace tests, but Larry, he could read people like books and solve problems like puzzles. That's when it hit me. Maybe I was approaching this all wrong. Maybe I needed to think like Larry. When I got home, I walked into Dad's room. The air was thick with bourbon and regret. He sat there on his unmade bed, staring out the window like he was watching a movie only he could see. His eyes were empty, distant. For a moment, my anger wavered. Maybe he was as trapped in this nightmare as I was. But I knew it in my bones, that he had the answers about Mom, about Larry, about this whole cursed town. Dad? My voice sounded smaller than I wanted it to. He turned his head slowly, like his neck was rusted. His eyes were glassy, unfocused. A grunt escaped his lips, barely acknowledging my existence. I shifted my weight, trying to sound casual. "I've got this school project. It's about family trees. Some questions about Mom." "School?" His eyes narrowed slightly. "It's summer." My heart skipped, but I pressed on. "Yeah, it's a summer assignment. We're supposed to gather family history and present it when we get back." His face darkened, and suddenly he seemed more alert. "What kind of information?" The words came out like ice cubes. "Just basic stuff. Her career, her maiden name, things like that." He stared through me for what felt like forever, and I could almost see him weighing whether to call my bluff. Then something in him deflated. "Don't remember much about your mother. Pushed it all away. Too painful." He took a long breath. "She wrote for the local paper. Redacted was her maiden name. That's all you're getting." It wasn't much, but it was enough to start. I spent hours working through phone books, making call after call, each wrong number feeling like another dead end. My fingers were numb from dialing when I finally heard the right voice. The connection crackled like autumn leaves. "Hello?" I managed. "Who is this?" The woman's voice was thin, fragile, but there was steel underneath. "I'm Matthew. I think you might be my grandmother." The silence that followed was so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Then I heard a soft sound, like someone trying not to cry. "My daughter's boy, how did you find me?" "Phone books, but that's not important. I need—" "Oh, Matthew." Her voice broke. "I'm so sorry. So sorry we were never there." We talked for a while, her words spilling out like she'd been holding them back for years. She told me about leaving town after Mom disappeared, about the whispers and sideways glances, about how the whole place felt wrong somehow. My grandfather had refused to leave, stubbornly staying until his death last year. Each revelation felt like another piece of a puzzle I couldn't quite see. Finally, I steered us back to what mattered. "Grandma, what was Mom working on before she disappeared?" The static seemed to grow louder. "What are you doing, Matthew?" I wanted to tell her everything about Larry, about the well, about the growing certainty that something evil lived in our town. But I couldn't burden her with more fear. "Larry's gone, Grandma, just like Mom. But this time I can do something. Please." "Such a good heart," she whispered. "Just like your mother. You shouldn't... ... It's not your choice." I cut in, softer than I meant to. "Everyone keeps telling me to let it go, that I'm being foolish. But if there's any chance I can save Larry, if I can finally understand what happened to Mom, I have to try." Her sigh rustled through the line like dead leaves. She was investigating the old town well. My blood ran cold. She thought it was nonsense at first, just local folklore. But something changed. The last time I saw her, she was different, scared. Said she'd found something big. Then, Her voice trailed off. After she vanished, people started asking questions about her work. Strange people. I knew I had to leave. I thanked her, made her promise to stay in touch. Her relief was palpable, like she'd been carrying this weight alone for too long. The newspaper office was my next stop. Most of what I found was useless, but the editor, an old man with nicotine-stained fingers and tired eyes, gave me one crucial detail. Mom had a writing cabin in the White Woods. She loved it out there, he said, shaking his head. Said it was peaceful. Never believed those old stories. The same cabin Jeremy wanted us to find. My heart was pounding as I realized the connection. I thought about texting Missy and John. They deserved to know, but this felt personal. The first time I saw my mother's sanctuary, it had to be alone. I waited until nightfall, lying fully dressed on my bed, listening to the house settle. When Dad's door finally clicked shut, I crept downstairs, each step a potential betrayal. Outside, the night air was thick with humidity. The White Woods were different at night. My phone's flashlight carved weak paths through the darkness, but the shadows seemed to move on their own. I passed the well, its mouth a black circle against the ground, calling to me. Larry was down there, somewhere, but rushing in blind would only get me killed. Hours passed as I wandered, my feet aching, sweat soaking my shirt, despite the cool air. Just as I was about to give up, I saw it. A cabin, almost swallowed by the forest. The wood was gray with age, the windows dark and empty. Inside, chaos reigned. Papers everywhere, like dead leaves after a storm. Someone had been here before me, hiding whatever my mother found. Fast food wrappers and other signs of life suggested Jeremy had made this place his temporary home. I sifted through the papers, trying to piece together Mom's investigation. She'd been young when she started. It started with Jeremy. That's how she found out about the whole thing. The other interviews were useless. The real truth clearly removed. And who could I trust? The town was full of secrets, and even my own father was part of the conspiracy. Just as despair started to set in, I noticed something off about one of the desk drawers. A false bottom, cleverly hidden. Inside was a single piece of paper, my mother's signature at the bottom. The note made my blood freeze. To whoever has found this, I write these words knowing they may be my last. If you're reading this, you've likely stumbled down the same dark path I did, and I pray you're better prepared than I was. They're watching, always watching, even when you think you're alone. Their eyes are everywhere in this town. Dot. I came to this story as a skeptic, seeing only a quaint local legend worth a few column inches. How naive I was. What I've uncovered is a cancer at the heart of this place, a darkness that has fed on our silence for generations. Each layer I peeled back revealed something more horrifying, until I finally understood the true cost of knowing too much. To my children, if by some miracle you find this, I'm sorry. Sorry I won't see you grow up. Sorry, I couldn't protect you from what's coming. To any other readers, I apologize. This may be the last thing I write. The truth is down there, in the dark. I've discovered something about the entity in the well. Something that might be its weakness. When it hasn't eaten in a long time, it's not as powerful. So tomorrow, I'll try to end this nightmare once and for all. If you're reading this, I failed. The revelation sent me spiraling. Each new piece of information hit like a punch to the gut, leaving me dizzy with questions and what-ifs. Mom had tried to stop it, whatever it was, and now I was left clutching fragments of a puzzle that refused to make sense. Every lead had turned into another dead end, and I was exhausted from chasing shadows around this God-forsaken town, hunting answers that seemed to evaporate like morning mist. The only way forward was terrifying. I'd have to follow in my mother's footsteps, maybe even face what she had faced. The walk home that night felt surreal. I'd finally found what I'd been searching for, except I hadn't, not really. Larry was still missing, and the truth remained frustratingly out of reach. But at least now I knew it wasn't all in my head. The thing that haunted these woods was real. I suppose that counted for something, even if it wasn't exactly comforting. Dawn was breaking by the time I stumbled home, the sky turning that peculiar shade of gray-purple that makes everything look slightly wrong. My father was exactly where I'd left him, passed out in his armchair, an empty bottle dangling from his limp fingers. I fired off a quick text to Missy and John, asking them to meet me at the oak tree. While I waited, exhaustion crept up on me like a tide, and I kept catching myself, drifting off. Missy's gentle touch on my shoulder startled me awake. She wore that soft smile of hers, the one that always made my heart skip a beat, even in times like these. I spilled everything. My grandfather's cryptic words, the disturbing absence of my mother's records, and the revelation about the cabin Jeremy had mentioned. The words tumbled out in a rush, like I couldn't get them out fast enough. Well, shit, John muttered, running a hand through his hair. He looked as tired as I felt. Missy leaned forward, her eyes intense. So we have to find this cabin now, right, Matt? I shifted uncomfortably, my hand going to my neck. Yeah, about that. When I finished telling them about my solo expedition, Missy's hand connected with the back of my head hard enough to make me see stars. Are you insane? She demanded. What if something had happened to you? What if you'd gotten lost? What were we supposed to do then? Keep going, I guess, I mumbled, not meeting her eyes. We need you, Matt. Her hand found mine, squeezing tight enough to hurt. We can't figure this out without you. I sighed, trying to hide how her touch made my face flush. I know it was stupid. I needed to see it for myself first. Well, from what you're saying, there's no point going back there now, Missy said, her voice heavy with resignation. John, who'd been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. So what's our next move? My eyes drifted to the white woods, those ancient trees standing like silent sentinels at the edge of town. I'm done waiting, I said. reaching behind me to pull out my father's handgun. The metal felt cold and wrong against my skin. If there's even a chance Larry's down there, we have to try. The gun safe's combination hadn't been hard to crack. Dad's birthday wasn't exactly Fort Knox security. Matt, Missy's hand connected with my head again, harder this time. It's for protection, I protested, rubbing the spot she'd hit. Look, I wanted to believe this was just some tweaker living in the woods, but if my mom said it was something more. I swallowed hard. I believe her. We exchanged glances then, and I recognized that look. The same one John had worn all those years ago when Larry first disappeared. It was that uniquely teenage mixture of courage and stupidity that makes you believe you're invincible. Without another word, we turned toward the White Woods. This time, we'd face them together. Missy's hand found mine again, and then, surprisingly, John grabbed my other hand. I shot him a questioning look. "Don't get any ideas," he grumbled. "I'm scared shitless, and I'm not holding her hand. You're the buffer zone." The unexpected humor broke through our tension, drawing shaky laughs from all of us. And so we set out, a chain of trembling hands and racing hearts, to face whatever waited in those woods. My feet ached with every step, the familiar path seeming longer than ever before. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I wondered if our parents had noticed our absence yet, if they'd figured out where we'd gone. But those thoughts felt distant, unimportant. Only one question really mattered. Was Larry still alive?